Logs. All right, today we're going to be talking about manipulation. Okay, maybe you have been throwing this word around. A lot of people throw around the word manipulation a lot. It almost seems like they use manipulation to manipulate people. The same with the word narcissism, right? People say, okay, this person's a narcissist, everyone's a narcissist, blah, 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 blah. It's just crazy how many people must be narcissists today. And maybe there's some truth to it. I mean, maybe there's some more narcissistic tendencies that people have, and people do manipulate, but I do feel like it's being thrown around really loosely because people don't really understand it and they don't really understand the implications of it. So I have a really simple analogy, okay, that's going to help unify two what people would say are disparate ideas under one umbrella, okay, which is this, is that leadership and manipulation are two sides of the same coin, and the name of that coin is persuasion. Again, I'll say it, that leadership and manipulation are two sides of the same coin, and the name of that coin is persuasion. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that underlying both manipulation and leadership is exactly the same skill, and that skill is persuasion. Now, the difference between leadership and manipulation is who it benefits. So if I persuade you to do something, and the thing that I persuade you to do or to believe, if it does not benefit you, in fact, if it's detrimental to you, but it's beneficial to me, then we could say that that is manipulation. I have manipulated you. I've used persuasion in a negative way, or at least negatively to impact you, which is a manipulation, is for my benefit. If I use the ability of persuasion or the skill of persuasion, but I use it in such a way that it helps you, that is going to improve your life, that is for your good, and it doesn't necessarily have to be to my detriment, but it is for your good or our good as a whole, as a collective, then I have led you. Okay, and I know that there's a lot of people that might disagree and say, oh, that's a very surface level view of manipulation and leadership, but it is really the key view of it in order to understand the difference, because ultimately, like I said, persuasion is the underlying skill. In fact, there's a really good book on persuasion that I have here from Robert Cialdini called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. I definitely recommend you read this book. It's a really, really good book. It's a long book. It's one that actually I would love to reread. It's been a while since I read this book. But you should learn the skill of persuasion, okay? And a lot of people get this confused, and they think that any kind of persuasion is manipulation, and that's not true. If I'm trying to persuade you of something, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily manipulating you. In fact, there can be sort of a neutral persuasion that isn't really manipulation or leadership. It's just, I'm just trying to get you to understand something or believe something. But mostly, I think you could really categorize it into one of those two categories, right? Does this really benefit the other person, or does it not, right? And what is the motive behind it, right? Am I trying to get you to do something or to believe something because it benefits me, and I'm not really taking into account you. It doesn't matter. I'm using you in a sense, right? That's what a manipulator would do. Or am I doing this thing in order to help you in some way, right? Because you have to be able to persuade someone in order to really be effective in life. In fact, persuasion is such a critical skill, right? And so the thing to really think about anytime that you're using the skill of persuasion, right? If you're looking at it from an ethical standpoint, and again, I don't like to bring morals and ethics into these videos simply because the issue with that is that it doesn't really change behavior, right? And what authority do I have to say that you should be moral? In reality, just because I tell you something is bad doesn't make you not want to do it. What does make you want to or want to not want to do something is the benefit that's in it for you. And so what again, the way that I approach things is to say, okay, what is the benefit here? And the benefit here in understanding the difference between manipulation and leadership is that you can now be able to utilize this power and to use it effectively, right? And you can understand why you're using it and what you're doing when you're doing this. So the big thing to think about is anytime that you're using persuasion, am I doing this for this person's good, right? And really the question you can ask is, am I disregarding this person and using them in order to get what I want? And there are instances where you do want to get what you want. For example, if you use persuasion at a job interview to get someone to hire you as a job, it is what you want. But also, you wouldn't want to persuade someone to hire you for a job that you knew that you were not the best candidate for, that you couldn't do a good job at, and it would be detrimental to them. All right. That would be lying. It would be deceitful. It would be manipulation, right? Especially if you use false information to persuade, right? At the same time, a lot of people will say that all forms of persuasion are manipulation, and that's not true at all. I know that a lot of times when I was doing dating coaching and teaching guys game, a lot of people would say, oh, game is just manipulation. Well, I can see that, and it certainly can be if you use that in order to, let's say, sleep with women and you're deceiving them in the process of doing that because you have no intent besides just sleeping with them, and you're doing it only for your benefit. Then in that case, yeah, it could be considered manipulation, especially if you're telling lies in order to do that. In that case, you're disregarding them. You're not actually creating something that is beneficial to them. But at the same time, if you're using that persuasion in the form of game in order to create a wonderful experience for the both of you that is a totally voluntary experience where you're being upfront and you're being transparent about what you're doing, then it is totally fine, and it is a useful skill, right? So the thing is that you can't go through this world without using the skill of persuasion, right? And that's why I say that, persuasion is the coin, and on one side of the coin you have manipulation, on the other side you have leadership, and ultimately you should be using your persuasion skills for leadership in order to lead people in the right direction so that you can help them, right? And a leader who did not use persuasive techniques would not be a very effective leader. Okay, no one is going to follow you just because you want them to, or just because you say to follow them, or just because you have the right answer. You're going to have to persuade them. You're going to have to figure out what it is that they want and why it's valuable to them, and communicate those points to them in order to get them to do the right thing, right? In this case, it's going to be the thing that is ultimately going to be beneficial to them, right? Just because something's beneficial to someone doesn't mean that they ultimately or automatically agree with it. A lot of times you're going to have to use persuasion in order to do that. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of make this video to really talk about this subject, because this is something that it's come up a lot, and I've thought about this a lot, and like I've said, I do feel like the word manipulation is thrown around loosely. In fact, it's thrown around in many cases in order to manipulate. A lot of times when you call what someone is doing manipulation, or you call someone a manipulator, a lot of times what you're trying to do is you're trying to manipulate them, or you're trying to manipulate someone else by saying that, because you're doing something that is not for their good, right? It is only for your benefit. You're trying to persuade someone to believe something, or to do something in order to benefit you, or maybe it might be to benefit your ego so that you feel better about yourself. You don't want to deal with your own problems. A lot of times that ends up happening. So I guess what I would say about this is, in terms of applying this to your life, is that, the next time that you are in a situation where you feel like someone is manipulating you, you really have to evaluate and say, why are they doing this? Are they doing this for their good and they're disregarding me? Are they doing it for my good? Do they believe that they're doing this for my good, right? Just because someone, again, this is kind of delves into marketing as well, right? Because this is where I did that video where I talked about I hate marketing and marketing is bullshit, and I'm done with the marketing, stuff like that. And what I found was that I was perhaps using some manipulation, right? I was perhaps doing some marketing in a way that did not really take into account the end user, or the receiver of that marketing, right? Which again, I can admit when I was wrong in doing that. Now, ultimately, I want people to be successful, and I want to help people to become financially free and to be successful in their lives. But when I am putting the sale in front of the value that's being given to the person, then my marketing, that persuasion that I'm doing, it's starting to fall on the side of manipulation and not on the side of leadership, right? It should be very clear in my mind, in the person who is receiving the service or buying the service's mind, that they're getting a benefit and that will benefit them, right? If I were to market, for example, something that costs money to someone who could not benefit from that, and I knew that they could not benefit from that, then that would be manipulation, because there's really no benefit for them. There's only a benefit for me. I take their money. They don't get anything out of that because they can't really utilize that thing. And so that's why also when I do one-on-one coaching, I'm very, very cautious about who I take on as a client. I'm not just going to take someone's money. I charge $1,500 a month to do one-on-one coaching, and there's been many people that I've honestly turned down because I'm like, I can't really help you. Like, this is not the way that you should be spending your money, especially when someone's like, I'm going to save up $1,500 so I can get an hour of your time. And I'm like, no, that's not 1 hour of my time is not going to fix all your problems in life, right? Maybe I could help you a little bit on your path and give you some guidance, but really, hey, we're going to need to have like 3 sessions, and you can't afford that because we need some time to actually progress and to do things. So it's just kind of made me think a lot about this, especially as I've been thinking about this topic and like how important is it to be authentic, right? And really what the underlying thing is what am I trying to do? Am I honestly trying to help someone? Is that honestly what my motive is? Do I know that, by making this transaction, by selling this thing, that it is ultimately helping someone? Or am I not even thinking about that in some cases? And sometimes it does become the case, especially I think that I found when I have other people doing a lot of the marketing for me. When someone else is marketing and selling for me, then what are their motives, right? Are they more likely to use a manipulation tactic in order to get someone to make the sale? Because they're not connected to that. They're not really caring whether this will benefit someone. And it's not to say that you can't have good, scrupulous salespeople and that you can't do good, scrupulous marketing, but you have to really think about that. And I would say, again, you have to apply this to your life. You have to really think about anytime you're using persuasion tactics, what are you ultimately trying to do? Are you trying to do something that is only beneficial to you? And it doesn't mean that it can't benefit you. Like, for example, I said with a job, if you're interviewing for a job, you should be persuasive, right? If you are trying to build a relationship with someone, if you are, developing your social skills, you should be persuasive. You should be persuasive about your ideas and your opinions and the things that you find valuable in life. But it should be for the benefit of other people. It definitely shouldn't be to their detriment, and it shouldn't be only for your benefit, right? It is okay to benefit from that, but there should be a mutual benefit. Otherwise, you really fall into the category of manipulation rather than leadership, right? And if you think about this, if you look at this, you can test this in your life, right? You can test this. You can look at people who you would consider to be manipulators, and you can see that they're ultimate motive is themselves, right? It is not to benefit you or anyone else, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. And you can look at this in terms of leadership, right? If you look at really good leaders, perhaps you have been under the influence, right? Perhaps a great leader has persuaded you. Then when you look back and you say, okay, well, why are they doing what they're doing? It is for your benefit, and you find that. And sometimes you would have people that would be leaders that you feel are leaders, and then as soon as you find out that they had an ulterior motive, all of a sudden, how do you feel? You feel manipulated. You feel misled. You feel like you were used, right? Because now you know what their true intent is. And once you figure out that they don't really care about you, they care about the money, or they care about their ego instead, then you feel misled. You feel like you've been manipulated. And in fact, you had been. In fact, you'd been manipulated for a very long time. You'd been deceived that whole time. And that's one other piece of this, I would say. And then I'll wrap this up, which is that a lot of times when someone uses persuasion to manipulate people, what you'll find is that they will be deceitful about their motive, right? So they will pretend like it's for your good, but ultimately it is not for your good. It is for their good. And that is sort of the hallmark of a manipulator. So don't throw the word around lightly. And like I said before, if you would like some one-on-one coaching with me, I do offer that. You can email me at john@bulldogmindset.com. I've got the new Bulldog Mindset membership that I'm revamping here. The price is going to go up. This is honest because I'm going to revamp this thing. But if you want to get in now while it's still the old membership, there's a link down below. And then if you are interested in financial freedom, if you want some help, if you've got the money to afford it, okay, and you're in a position where you're ready to either invest in real estate or start building a business, DM me on Instagram. You can use the word freedom. Then I'll know, or someone on my team will know that you're interested in that opportunity, and we'll get in touch with you. And I will see you tomorrow.